Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and today we're having a look at the Carlton Football Club and what they have to offer us for SuperCoach 2017. They've got a few options for us, and this is of course where we preview all the clubs, and it's only December, so we just take a bit of a broad look at a few players worth discussing. Obviously not discussing your real obvious ones. I can tell you that Simpson's going to be consistent as ever. Doherty's a great pick for your back line. We all know that. It's not really worth discussing until we get to Jan and Feb and really pinpoint some exact positions and really focus in on our premiums. Going to discuss a few guys that have potential to make some money, maybe break out, and just worth discussing. And I'm going to start off with a man that I'll openly admit I have a bit of a man crush for, and it's Patrick Cripps. He's priced at $585,000. He's only played the 44 games, but he's got to have the best hands out of a clearance in the whole game already. There's probably no better fella at combining from the ruck, winning the hard ball, and then dishing it out to his fellow midfielders. He does it time and time again. Absolutely brilliant at it. He has a high handball to kick ratio, and there's a good reason for it. He's always at the bottom of those packs, tackling hard, doing what we love in SuperCoach. But very recently, he has suffered a lower back injury, which is concerning in itself. He'll be out for 12 weeks, so that really interrupts his pre-season. And for a bloke who was locked and loaded for my side at what I thought was a pretty decent price, to be honest, with that involved, makes things a little concerning. Doesn't rule him out completely, but I think we've got to consider these things, because injuries through the pre-season to guys we're paying pretty good cash for, you don't really want to be doing that too often unless they're absolutely proven, and Cripps isn't absolutely proven, even though every sign says he'll be a future superstar. An interruption and an injury like lower back, which can flare up, that'll affect anyone, whether he's the chosen one or your average Joe playing twos footy. So you got to consider it. As for some numbers for Cripps, he averaged 107.9 points last year, 107.6, and he was just fantastic, especially towards the end of the year. He finished the year with an absolute blast, 800s in the last 8 rounds. In the last 6 rounds, he averaged 132. In particular, I think it was the last 2 or 3 where he scored over 130. So he can produce huge numbers. Sometimes he has lower games where he'll just handball too much, but over the course of the season, he steps up in the big moments, chimes in for the old key goal, and wins plenty of his own footy. So the question about Cripps isn't what we're going to get from a points point of view. I think he's the man for the future. He's the chosen one at Carlton. He's a future leader, a future champion. I don't think we can doubt that. What we do have to sort of doubt and look at is, are we going to see his best footy in the first 6-7 weeks? I've got no doubts that we'll see great footy in the back half of the season, depending how this, back injury and the effects of his pre-season. But it's obviously going to put him back, and we don't want to be forking out $580,000 to a guy who starts the season slowly. So that's the concern. If there's any sort of saving grace, he's probably not the guy who needs to have an unbelievable pre-season. Of course, it always helps, but he is just so good at reading the play, being in and under. He's already very developed as a footballer anyway, even though he's quite young. So a few things playing in his favour there, but track his pre-season and see how he comes back. A fellow midfielder, Marc Murphy. Very interesting is Marc. He's been cheap before. He's let us down before at times, but he's had certain stages of his career where he's been as good as any. 2009 to 2012, averaged 112 to 118 in all 4 of those seasons. So he absolutely dominated there. That was when Judd was playing some really good footy as well, and Murphy seemed to really play good footy when the heat wasn't right on him. And as we know, when a tag's come his way, he has been able to get shut down at times, also coinciding with the fact that he's carried a fair bit of that Carlton midfield and just general pressure, being the captain as well, through a pretty tough time of the club's recent history. So there's been a few things impacting him, not only a bit of form, but injury as well, a bit of pressure and a lack of support. Is that going to change next year? That's the question, because he's priced very nicely. $432,000 we've got to pay for him. It's not much at all, considering we know what he can do, those numbers I just said, but we need answers for the questions I just asked. Does he get the support? I think it's starting to help a little bit. There's a few more players starting to put their hand up. Is he the number one man anymore? Probably not. Cripps probably is. Does that help him? Can you tag Cripps? Maybe they still put the tag to Murphy because they know it works. They're all questions we've got to ask, but I think Murphy's going to be a tempter. I'm a little bit concerned even in his recent form. He's probably dropped off from what he once was an elite premium, scoring 110 plus per year, to sort of hovering around the low to mid 100s. 2013, 92.4, then he's gone 106, 103.2, and then 79.5 last year. He had the injury last year, ankle injury, so that kept him out for quite a bit, and that was the reason that he has that low average. Only played 50% game time in round 4, 36 SuperCoach points. Round 10, where his season came to an end, he barely even got out there, just a 6% game time, 12 SuperCoach points. So all that means that his price does drop a fair bit, which is tempting, no doubt, but we definitely got to look at what sort of role he's going to play. How much attention is he going to cop? Can he get back to his best footy? Maybe he can, maybe he can't. When you look at that, you got to think about it, but I'd be more leaning to Dane Beams. They're at exactly the same price, basically. I think Beams is by far the better option. There's no reason you can't go both, but if I was picking one, I'd definitely say Beams. Murphy has just dropped off ever so slightly, probably a 5 to 10 points per year, and I'm not sure we really want to be paying $430,000 for a guy who's going to average 103. I mean, it'd be nice, but it's not exactly what you want. You'd almost rather go all out, get a absolute premium, or save some dosh on maybe Jaeger O'Meara or a young gun, someone coming through. So plenty of questions around Murphy, that's for sure. We'll move on to Matthew Kreuzer, the man who'll be palming it down to these boys. Now, Kreuzer, can you believe he's nearly 28? It's unbelievable when I saw that. For so long he's been, this year will be Kreuzer's year. Next year, we'll see the best of him soon. He's nearly 28. Unbelievable to think of. We'll have to fork out about $400,000 for Matty Kreuzer, and he has really struggled to get on the park consistently for his whole career. But he had a better year in that department last year, played the 21 games. But unfortunately, he did have to share the workload a little bit with Andrew Phillips, who played the 16 games, averaged 16 hitouts there. Now, Kreuzer only averaged 73 last year, so it certainly wasn't good. I feel as if every time he's really looked like he's going to explode, an injury hits him and he gets put back. So he's a tough one to really get a read on. Is he going to be an absolute superstar, even if it's for a few years? Because, let's face it, Ruckman, this can be their prime when they're sort of 26, 27, 28. There's no reason that there can't be some of their best years in their career. Now, Kreuzer's shown the ability to have some good numbers. 2012 averaged 92.4, 97.9. In 2013 was his best year. And he's had hot patches during years, which, shows that he's got the absolute capabilities, no doubt. And I've always been a big rap for him. He's a big man who can win a lot of the ball. He used to be very mobile. I guess the question could be raised with all these injuries, is he still as mobile as he once was? But nonetheless, he can take a mark. He's a very creative ruckman and can win enough of the ball. He's got all the attributes to be dangerous, but I feel that price is just going to be a little bit awkward. It's a little bit dangerous, especially when you got a guy like Sandilands, who'd probably be about $100,000 cheaper, and you got proven ruckmen like Gawn and Goldstein, and a lot of hype around next best sort of thing in Grundy. So you'd be a game man to go for Kreuzer. I thought I'd put him in there just because he's an interesting little case study. I think he's capable of averaging 3 figures, but whether he can do it over the course of a season, the jury's out. Can his body hold up? The jury is out. Will he work the ruck on his own? The jury is out on that as well. So I guess when you got that many question marks, you really got to question the decision, I suppose. But no doubt, I think if Kreuzer does get the opportunity to ruck solo, I think we could see an average of around 100. Again, if his body can hold up, I really do think he's got the capability to go pretty big. But as I've sort of said, you'd be pretty ballsy to go with him at that sort of price with the options we have in the ruck department. But nonetheless, he's worth having a bit of a thought process about at this stage of the year. A couple of guys who didn't play any footy last year but are high picks and as Carlton look to blood a few guys, they'll certainly have their best opportunity to really play some regular AFL footy. Jared Pickett makes his way over from the Giants. He was a number 4 pick in 2014. You can snap him up as a forward. Now there is an opportunity for him, of course. Carlton's forward line is where they seem to lack, both in the tall department and basically everywhere, I suppose. They're going to be looking to give guys chances to really prove themselves. I think Pickett is one guy who could add something for sure. Plenty of big raps about him. An explosive type, can move up in the midfield, probably your half-forward flank type. He's got plenty of speed, plenty of tricks. He's not going to be a high possession getter, but you know, let's face it, we're not going to pay big bucks for him. He didn't play last year. I mean, he hasn't debuted yet. So he's one guy that we should certainly keep an eye out for. If he can have a good pre-season, work his way into the best 22, well, you'd have to think that we'd really seriously consider him. And Harry McKay, another top pick, number 10 in 2015 draft. He's a bit of a different case. He's a forward, so there's obviously an opportunity there for him as Carlton cry out for the next key forward to come through. He is 200 centimetres, so you'd have to think it's unlikely that we'd be seeing real consistent footy from him yet. He was put on the long-term injury list last year, had some back problems, as Cripps does right now. So he only played the 6 games in the VFL, named him the best twice, but there are pretty big raps on him. They took him high, that sort of mobile big guy, I guess your modern day big man, you know, the fella who can take a grab, but Rory Lobb style. He's also very impressive on the deck. That's what they'll be hoping for. I would be more excited about Pickett, to be honest, just because McKay's a tall man but also a young man, so I think we'd be still a little while off seeing him play regular senior footy, but you never know what a pre-season can bring. Carlton will certainly be hoping that he and Kerno can produce quite a force in that forward line in years to come. But that's a bit of a wrap-up for Carlton. I think there's a few options that's worth considering. Certainly, I couldn't say any are going to feature in my side at the moment. I really like Doherty. I think he's an absolute jet, but he's just so expensive. I think he's a potential chance to drop a little bit in price. He's just so expensive for a defender. I know he's great, but I think I'd be playing the odds that he might drop. And Simpson, very consistent. You know what you're going to get. He may well feature depending on what other options we have in the back line, but you can bank on him. And all the other guys, Kreuzer I'd probably put a line through, but seriously consider the midfield duo of Cripps and Murphy. As I said, very disappointed that Cripps went down with injury because I was stoked to be able to start him, the Bont, you know, Dylan Shield, a few next generation superstars, at least in my mind. Would have been exciting, but I'm struggling to pull the trigger on Paddy Cripps after that injury. But we'll wait and see what he can do when he returns from that. Because as we've seen in the past, we've seen guys like Selwood have limited pre-seasons and come out and have great starts to the year. It sometimes adds up that pre-season means a lot, but sometimes guys just, you know, they time their run right. They're ready to go for round 1, even though it hasn't been a foolproof pre-season. And sometimes you get pre-seasons like Michael Barlow. Had a great pre-season last year, came out and burned us all. So we'll have to wait and see what he really produces in the NAB Challenge. But that's a bit of a wrap for Carlton. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you enjoyed the video, leave me a comment on what you like and give it a thumbs up. And of course, subscribe to my channel. It'd be much appreciated if we can get as many people on board. This will be going to SuperCoach HQ as well. So check everything that they've got happening on the website too. I'll be back very soon with another preview. We'll look to bust these out every few days if we can. And hopefully you're enjoying them, guys. I'll see you soon.